Hi, everyone. This is a quick video to show you how to write the claims and evidence section for your summative project. This is going to be the meat of your project, so it's the biggest section. And it's where you're going to show your understanding of how important it is to use evidence to support an argument. So you will be picking out claims from your literature review, from what you have found during your research, claims that have to do with your topic. So it could be if you are doing, for example, I will use the example of human cloning as my project with these. So let's say you're doing human cloning. Let's say that there are about 2 or 3 claims in favor of human cloning that I could find. Um, and then there's another 2 or 3 against human cloning or for a modified version of human cloning. So these are the things that we're going to pick out. And then you are going to list what your supporting evidence is. So what is your source? So let's look at some examples. So as I mentioned here, you will have 1 or 2 claims, let's say 2 claims on one side, supporting one side of the argument, and then at least 2 supporting another side of the argument. You could have more than 2 and 2, you could have 4 in total, you could have 5 in total, 6, however many you want, but at least have 2 on one side of the argument and 2 on the other side of the argument. So let's look at some examples. Taylor, this is part of Taylor's claims and evidence section. It's not the whole thing, but it's part of it. So you can see how she integrates the claim and how she includes the evidence, which is the source in parentheses here. So for example, the topic was destruction of ocean biodiversity. The first claim is that humans are the main stressors on reducing ocean populations of wildlife. And the source of that is Halpern BS, page 1, 2019. So you only need to include the page number when you have a direct quote. So in this case, Taylor didn't have to include the page number, but you do need to include in parentheses the author of the study that makes this claim and the year of publication. If you find several articles that all make this claim, you could actually include them all in the parentheses. So just separate them by semicolons. Another claim that is made is that some of the stressors that are related to human impact on ocean biodiversity are things like fishing, ocean transport or sea transport, climate change, and land-based pollution. And the source for that is the UN Environmental Program Report 2018. On the other hand, she also mentions some of the alternatives that are being studied to reduce ocean pollution, like biodegradable straws and paper reusable bags. And the source of that claim is Wu, Yang, and Criddle, 2016. Let's look at another example. Jordan was looking at whether we should protect bee populations. And one of the claims that is made here is that we need to make sure we are protecting the bee populations that are native to each specific area and not just bee populations in general. And the source for that is the evidence is O'Toole 2013. And the second part of this paragraph talks about how it's not just that these areas have bee-friendly flowers, but we also need to consider the kind of diseases that affect the bees in these areas, and also the predators like beetles that affect bees. And the same source of evidence, O'Toole 2013 on that one. Looking at another example, Clay did his project on the HIV vaccine, whether it is possible and how close we are to perfecting it. The first paragraph, one of the claims he makes or summarizes is the fact that there have been some failed attempts in the past when it comes to HIV vaccine. The source is Sakali 2018. You don't need to include the month. And then on the second paragraph, the other point of view is all the successes with the vaccine. And this is according to the National Institute of Allergy report from 2016. The next example is Taylor Ems, and she was doing her project on the opioid crisis. So one of the claims that she found about the opioid crisis is the fact that a lot of physicians were not trained properly, and therefore this caused them to overprescribe opioids. And the study that she referenced is Koenig 2018. Another claim is the fact that the pharmaceutical companies had a lot to do with it, because they reassured the doctors that the patients were not going to be addicted to the prescribed opioids. And this was from a study from the National Institute on Drug Abuse 2018. And then there's another study, another claim about how physicians that come from top medical universities actually wrote fewer prescriptions. So the training that they receive seems to be more efficient in reducing the opioid epidemic. And the study for that is Ayers and Jalal 2018. So you can see how there's several claims in the evidence, where they found that this claim, what study made this claim and supported this claim. So where can you find more evidence about it? And the fifth example I put in here because I wanted you to see that some of the articles that you're going to read have these numbering system for including the citations. I don't want you to follow this numbering system. I want to make sure you do the parenthesis one where you have the last name of the author or authors and the year of publication. Okay, so even though you might see some like Addie here that included it as a number and then puts the citation at the end, I want you to make sure you do it with the last name of the author, author's year of publication. In this case, Addie is writing about, she looked at whether we should protect endangered species. So in this part of her claims and evidence, she talked about how there has been many cases of plants and animals that were critically endangered, and then there were some measures put in place to protect them, and they have actually been able to flourish again, and they're no longer facing endangerment, like, for example, the Tennessee purple coneflower. And then she provided the evidence for that. So you saw a few different examples of how to integrate the claim and the supporting evidence. Where is this claim coming from? What study looks at this claim and finds evidence supporting this claim? So what I created for you to help you write this section is a planning chart. So this is what you're going to be using. This is like the first step of writing your claims and evidence section. You are going to be picking out the claims. So let's say that I am doing genetically modified foods. And one of the claim one would be genetically modified foods are perfectly safe. Okay, so then in the supporting evidence, I list the studies that I found or the books that I used that find evidence supporting that claim. The second claim could be that they do not reduce biodiversity of surrounding crops, for example. Let's say that. And then I would include the source for that. And my third one would be that genetically modified foods are able to reduce world hunger because we are able to engineer them so they have more nutrients like vitamin A. And then the supporting evidence for that. On the other hand, I could have the claim, the other point of view, which would be GMOs are bad for the environment because they dilute the genetic diversity of other crops. And what is the evidence for that? And then claim number 5 could also be, some people say that or some studies says that GMO foods are harmful to health. Okay, and the supporting evidence I find for that might be a legitimate study from a reputable journal, or it might be that I can't find any reputable journals that say that GMO foods are bad for you, but I have found a bunch of blogs that talk about how dangerous they are. But I know looking at these blogs that they're very biased and they do not have scientific backing to them. So I can give them a supporting evidence, but I need to make sure that I also mention These do not seem like reliable sources because they are paid for by the environmental working group, or the author is not an expert, or whatever, all those things that we have talked about throughout the course for identifying reliable and not reliable evidence. So you can mention those when you talk about where the evidence is coming from. Okay, so that is that for the quick preview of the claims and evidence section, to kind of get you thinking about how it's going to be organized and how you can put it together. So we'll do this first, the planning chart, and then it's going to be really easy for you to take this planning chart and put it into paragraph form, and then you will have the section written. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions at all, yeah, do some research and see what you come up with. I look forward to checking them out.